Rohan, fix that camera. Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, that's way zoomed out. Okay. I think it's fixed. At least it's steady. Oh, now the zoom in. What's up, everyone? How are we doing?
Happy Monday, everybody. The markets are back open. Let us know in the chat what y'all are watching and trading today. AB here, Spencer with me. As always, Spencer, how we doing today?
We're doing well. We're doing well. How are we doing on the new intro? I saw a new intro. I think it's part of the way there. I don't think it's all the way there. Do you want to run with the part of the way there new intro, the old intro, or just roll? Why don't we just roll no intro today?
All right.
Let's just roll no intro. This is the show. It is starting. Actually, it already has started. So
let's get ready.
My question, AB, is what has taken a bigger haircut? My head or my portfolio?
I don't know. I mean, hopefully your portfolio is not taking too big of a haircut, considering cannabis stocks are all up nicely today.
Yes, they are.
Using some of my handy dandy metrics, out of the top 5 trending tickers on social media, so Reddit, Twitter, the whole investing sphere, 2 out of the top 5 trending stocks are in the cannabis space. Spencer, can you guess what those 2 stocks are?
Okay, without looking, 2 of the top 5 trending on social media stocks today. Are they both stocks or any of them ETFs? Are they
both stocks?
Okay. Is one of them Canopy Growth?
Nope.
Damn. Okay.
0 for 1.
Is one of them GrowGen?
Nope.
What?
0 for 2.
Okay. Is one of them? Are they OTC?
No.
Tilray would be the third guess.
Tilray is one of them. I see the other one in the chat.
Sundial?
Yep. Tilray and Sundial are 2 of the top 5 trending tickers. The non-cannabis stocks in that top 5 are Tesla, Nvidia, and Rivian.
Okay.
So
okay. We're going to talk about all this today.
Yeah, we are going to talk about everything. So Tilray and the rest of the cannabis stocks are up on the news that the Republicans are bringing forth a bill to legalize cannabis in the United States. Spencer, do you know anything more about that bill?
I know they're due to present it today. I gotta give it to the Republicans. They just basically hijacked one of the key issues on the Democratic platform and said, "We'll take that. Thank you very much."
Yeah, they're basically saying, "Hey, if you guys aren't going to do this, we will, and we'll get the credit for it because it's one of those measures that's widely popular throughout the, all voters in the United States." So it's." One of those things that'll be a good, easy political win for the Republicans. So
if they can get it through, which we will see.
But either way, I mean, even if they don't, because then if the Democrats step in and have problems with the bill, then they can say, "Oh, hey, look, it's the Democrats holding up, legalizing cannabis," which again is something that's very popular. Solar Up saying, yeah, they want to legalize the profits, but we'll see. I mean, I assume there will be, we'll see if there can be bipartisan support and work done on the bill. I'm not very bullish on that.
You know what? We should probably save this discussion for later on the show because we're going to have a cannabis related CEO on. Doug Drysdale is the CEO of Cybin, ticker CYBN, related to cannabis. Kind of, right? Tangentially, it's the same idea of legalizing a drug. It's the same idea. Cybin, psychedelics are a few years behind cannabis in everything, right? In terms of regulatory changes, legalization, capital markets, a few years behind cannabis. So I would be curious to get Doug's thoughts on all this. But hey, that being said, speaking of guests, we skipped ahead here because our first guest will be on here, joining in a minute or so. Matt Hammond from IPO Warriors is going to recap last week in IPO lane and preview what is to come this week in IPOs. I'd be curious to hear how Matt played Rivian last week. I mentioned Doug Drysdale from Cybin. That'll be at 12:45. We'll have Jake Wujastyk from TrendSpider on the show at 1, and Chris Capri from Second Skies Trading on the show at 1:30. So do us a favor, hit that like button, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your friends' neighbors' dog, and we can get ourselves off to a good show today. Good start to the week. So like you said, market's in the green, at least last I checked. I'm in the green, you're in the green, we're all in the green. What up, Dylan? What up, Igor? What up, everyone in the chat?
SPY actually took a little dumpski. It's in the red right now.
A dumpski?
Yeah, but it looks like it's coming back up.
I don't like dumpskis.
Yeah, I know it dropped about 0.25% out of nowhere at around 11:40 a.m. Eastern. So that's
I didn't see
interesting.
that. That was 20 minutes ago.
I know. We'll keep an eye on that. QQQ, kind of same thing. But yeah, Spencer. So big headline over the weekend was, of course, Elon Musk on Twitter. Took a shot at Bernie Sanders, which some people loved, some people didn't love. But overall, the bigger story here is just Tesla's price action in the last week. The stock
wait, let's pull up a chart so we can I'll pull up mine while you talk.
The stock is down more than 15% in the last week. So we're used to seeing Tesla's stock, take rips up. Of course, nothing goes straight up. There will be dips along the way, but usually with Tesla, those are followed by bigger rips. The question is, will we get that bigger rip, or will we see the weakness continue in Tesla's chart?
Wait, is Tesla in a bear market? Is that what this is? Wait, let me go to a different chart here.
By standard definition of going down 20% or more from its all-time highs, yes, you could.
Tesla's in a bear market. Oh my God, it's crashing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we will see, because a lot of times these dips are followed by bigger rips, and that will be the question with Tesla stock. I think this week will be very, very important to see. Who knows, by the end of the week, we could be back at all-time highs at around 1,200, or we could come all the way back down to 800. So anyone out there that's trading Tesla, let me know how you are trading it in the chat. I'm very curious. Are you playing it with options? Are you buying the stock? Are you buying the dip? Let us know what you think about Tesla, because right now it just seems like there's a lot of wins being taken out of the sale. Of course, Elon Musk has a lot of different reasons to sell stock. Part of it is that if he doesn't sell any now, then a lot of his options can expire without him exercising them, because he can only exercise so many each quarter. So if he doesn't start doing it now,
he also has to pay tax. He literally needs money to pay the taxes,
right? And
he doesn't have the money.
The adage goes, there are a bunch of reasons to sell a stock, paying taxes being one of them. There are only a few reasons to.
There's only one reason to buy.
There's only one reason.
There's only one reason to buy.
Well, yeah, we'll say there's only one reason to buy.
Well, what's the other reason? You think the one reason to buy a stock is you think it's going to go higher.
Well, if you're like an insider, yeah, but if you're, say, short a stock, you need to buy it to cover. There are multiple reasons you can buy a stock. But if you're an insider like Elon Musk is, and you're going to buy the stock, there really is only one reason, because you think it's going higher. There are a multitude of reasons as why you would want to sell a stock, but I think regardless of what that reason is for Elon, for Tesla shareholders and Tesla fans in general, seeing him sell stock is a bearish sign. So we shall see, but right now, Tesla down about 4% on the day, continuing a bear trend for the stock, which is we haven't said in a while. So, again, let us know in the chat how you guys are trading it. ETC saying Tesla just approved to sell electricity in Texas. We'll see if that can be a catalyst for the stock, but who knows? Dave is saying he's buying the dip every time it's on sale. So
Dave has been proven right time and time again. Buying the dip always works. Isn't that the rule? It always works, except in some stocks.
Yep. So Spencer, before we get to Matt Hammond, we've got one more headline. This one in the restaurant space. So if you're a fan of fast food chains, whatever, this may interest you.
What's the stock?
The QSR.
Yeah, we know it. Owners of Burger King and Timmy Ho's.
Owners of Burger King, Tim Hortons, Popeyes just acquired another brand today in an all-cash deal. A sandwich franchise. Do you know which one that is, Spencer?
I saw the headline. It was Firehouse subs.
It was Firehouse.
And they paid $1 billion?
$1 billion for Firehouse subs.
Those are some expensive subs.
So that just goes to show you guys, if you open a sub shop and you do well and you franchise it out a little bit, you can sell it for $1 billion. Restaurant Brands goes out, buys Firehouse in a $1 billion cash deal. It looks like the market's like the move for QSR, up about 1%, but nothing crazy. So we will see how Firehouse is able to impact Restaurant Brands' revenue, balance sheet overall. But just some headlines in the restaurant space.
Those are some expensive subs. That's all I'll say about that.
Oh, Shelly, yeah.
Congrats to the Firehouse subs. Seriously, that company donates a portion of their profits to firehouses. So congrats to them. Great job.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe they'll stop that now that they're under new ownership. I doubt it.
I hope not.
Shelly pointing out another headline in the restaurant fast food space. So McDonald's announced a partnership with Mariah Carey.
Is she still relevant?
It's about to be holiday season, so every time
Mariah Carey season. It's here. It's here.
She makes a comeback every year around Christmas time. So we've seen McDonald's do this with a few other artists, have deals. They had one with BTS, the popular K-pop, Korean pop band. They had one with Travis Scott. So now they're doing the same with Mariah Carey. Yeah, I know. So
anyway, so we know it's approaching Mariah Carey season. That's in a couple of weeks though. You know what season it is now? It's Matt Hammond season.
All right.
It's IPO season. Let's get Matt Hammond on the show to talk some IPOs. Where's he at?
Matt, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing? It is IPO season. We had a little bit of an off season there in the summer, and now we've had some pretty big ones. So
excellent. I can't wait to hear how you played Rivian last week. So here you go.
I told you I was going to watch Rivian, but it did play out. We'll get to that one in a second.
Yes.
First thing I wanted to say is thanks to everybody who contributed to the fundraising campaign. I said I wanted to get some better streaming equipment. I want to live stream some IPOs. I've been talking with Benzinga. They've, at least indicated maybe we'll do a little bit more switching out to watching some of these actually go live. I think it would have been pretty fun to watch some of what Rivian did. You guys have, talking to Rohan, he's going to kick me out some gear as well. But we got $2,000 in under 1 week. And I really appreciate all the support. Some of the things I'm going to use that for is improving the presentation quality of these kind of weekly shows. I would like to do some live streaming of the IPO debuts, and if time allows, I will do some video breakdowns of the IPOs before they go live. So really appreciate that. It's not too late to contribute more. I'll buy more stuff and improve things even better.
You should have some equipment on the way, man.
Yes.
Or so I've heard.
And I'll ask for some. If you guys have some T-shirts or stuff, I'll wear those on the show and with what I'm doing. So,
We'll send you over some swag. Some swag.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah. So jumping in, last week actually had a lot of really good ones. We talked about Sint. Went up 25%. We'll just run through these real quick. I didn't like this as a play. I don't generally like anything that dumps like that anyway. Dumped off the debut. If you did say, hey, wait, this is below the IPO price, it's dipped this far, how bad could it get? You were rewarded not just with a retracement up to VWAP, which is a lot of times all that we see, but if you held through that and said, okay, well, I'll give this some room to run, it just for no real reason blew up, hit up to 2250. And one of the things about trading is you're looking for stocks with catalysts. You're looking for volatility. That's what you're looking for in day trading, and that's why I like IPOs. Not all of them are going to do this, but if you like this company, I guess a lot of people do like this company. Your catalyst is, hey, it's IPOing. The momentum, the volatility, the volume are all going to be about as high as you can ask for on the days that they IPO, which is what make these attractive targets for day traders. So Sint was one. Society Pass, if you remember last week, I said, hey, this kind of, a crappy Asian e-commerce-ish, IPO that really looks sort of weird with a pretty low float. This could be a stealth IPO. I tried to get in on this, and unfortunately, Webull hit the indication price right before it debuted. So I had mine set at 1350. And it debuted at 1550 and then dropped to 15. So if I had been a little bit more aggressive, I would have caught this ride from 15 through 4 halts, topped here at like 42 or something. Came back here around 30. And we see these just run the same pattern, ran up to 52. The next morning ran up to 70. And we saw these with, I think, CPOP, TIRX.
Why do you suppose that is? I don't know if I've ever asked you that before.
Yeah, so there's different theories about this. Having talked about it with a bunch of people and putting our heads together, the thing that makes the most sense to me is that whoever's buying it way up here is not trying to buy low and sell high. They're almost like trying to buy high and sell low. Or really just buy high and not give a crap.
I was going to say buy high and sell higher, I thought.
Well, but I mean, who's buying? I mean, they are pushing this up through halts on day 2, and somebody's paying somebody up at $60 for a garbage company. I mean, we saw EJH was one of them that did this, and it's like a cleaning company in China. W&W, which spiked yesterday through some halts off some random. I mean, they're low float to begin with. They tend to try to do things to deter us from seeing them or for wanting to play them. They're so bad that, no one in their right mind is going to pay this thing. The IPO price was at $9. Who is going to say, okay, well, this company has no revenue or barely any revenues. The platforms that they run are garbage. They're just losing money. Who's going to pay $15 for this?
It's so bad that it's good. It's so bad that it's good. That's it.
Well, I think my answer for this, until proven otherwise, is that they all have ties to China. I mean, we saw FCUV was uplisting. They all have similar underwriters. This one was Maxim. We've seen a lot of them that were Boasted Securities. We saw a bunch that were Network One Financial, Sutter. And a lot of these companies have done IPOs together. They've co-written, been the co-writers on IPOs as the underwriters. So there's sort of like they must tap in. My theory, and they use the same lawyers, and they have. My opinion is that they're helping Chinese and other wealthy Asians, but especially Chinese, funnel money out of China. So if you have a whole bunch of money in a bank account in China, and you're trying to get it into Hong Kong or Singapore or into the Western markets, what you can do is you can issue shares somehow out to, if you can hand shares cheaply to your cousin or your uncle or some affiliated partner outside of China, and just tell them, hey, I will control the, just control the float, and I will buy, as much of this stuff as I can with this, say, $200 million I have in a bank account here in China. That money, as I buy those shares that no one else is, who else is participating in this market? Not a lot of people. So if I'm the only one buying your shares, I'm basically giving you that money and moving that money from China to, to the West. And I talked about last week, Pets. Pets was one that I had called out a month ago and sent out to my newsletter when it was about at $1.30 or $1.40, because they had the same underwriter do a direct offering of 30 million shares, basically at about 60, or came out to about 30 cents a share when you factored out the warrants and the profits. And you're like, well, that should just sink the share price. But it didn't. It did a little bit, but it came right back up. And now it's up at $6. It was at $4 when we talked about it on the show last week. So why are they doing this? Why is Hoodie, HUDI, why has that gone up to $45 in the last few months? Why did TRX go all the way up to $100 and then in one day lost 90% of its value with no headline, no news, no nothing? Why does W&W sometimes randomly pop? Why do these go? Well, because in my opinion, they're moving money. They're using these as vehicles to get money out of Asia and into Western markets. And after this happened, I went back and said, geez, why, what did I miss here to not make me just put my limit order at like 16 or 20 for that matter? And I went back and I looked up, the CEO is, extensive experience doing startups in Shanghai. The CFO, is Chinese. So, there are hints. FCUV, when we look back at it, we said, oh, we had our eye on it, and it took a day before they ran it from like $5 or $6 all the way to 25 in one day after their uplisting, and then now it's come way back down. But what was up there? Oh, the whole only 3 employees are all very, very Chinese, as in they don't even have American alias names. They're Chinese engineers. So this tie back to China, and it makes sense. If you're a wealthy Chinese person with tons of money in China right now, given what President Xi is doing over there, he is basically cracking down on the wealthy. And if I was a rich person, or a rich person in China more specifically, I would be trying to get my money out of there too. And it's not easy to do that. So even if you're paying a 20 or 30% premium on the shares that maybe get bought out or sold by other people, this is an effective way to, and it's not the first time that the stock market has been used as a way to funnel cash out of a country. The Russians were doing this in the 90s. And that's the only answer that I have. How do completely garbage companies make insane runs that all of a sudden, this one's still kind of holding on, but it's nowhere near any reasonable valuation. And all of these tend to peter out or they all do peter out eventually. And when I look at pets and what they're doing there, I'm just like, okay, I sold enough. I bought in at basically $1.20, and I sold enough when it reached $8 on one of these days where it gets spiked, that I've already paid for my position, and now I can just sit back. And if they run it, I think they're still running it because it hasn't fallen out yet. And when it does,
fair enough.
Anyway,
right.
I try to call these out when I've made huge profits on some of these. I made $33,000 on 1,000 shares of TIRX when it debuted. It opened at 17, went into a 3-hour halt, and opened up again at $50. So if you can spot these and you take kind of a, okay, well, I'll give it a shot approach to it. I mean, the returns have been massive. UTME, that was another one. Anyway, back to the more traditional kind of fun and boring ones that are also profitable if you play them right. Expensify, we said we liked. We got in here at the debut. I do like taking a $2 profit right off the run. It's sort of kind of the easiest, I'd say, 2 hours in trading is to find a good company with these guys. They have positive baseline financials. They're somewhat brand recognized. The float wasn't too big, and it gave you exactly what you expected right off the debut. So you buy 1,000 shares, get in at say $39.75, sell it at $42. That's like a really pretty comfortable, easy 5% win right off the bat. The market just wasn't really rewarding these IPOs on day one the way that we've seen maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. So this one pulled back a bit. You could try to double dip. I generally don't do that. But where the real money was in these plays, and I'm taking notes for kind of the next set of IPOs, is these day 2 runs. This one actually touched $50 today.
You've talked about that a lot.
So especially for brand name IPOs, a lot of people are starting to kind of come into the IPO. I'd say that the number of followers I've got has been much higher over the last 2 weeks than the previous 6 months, and I think a lot of people are keying in on it. And it's in some ways you have to adjust, because if everybody's buying in pre-debut, that's less demand once it actually goes live. But a lot of people are kind of catching that overnight media cycle where the headlines say Expensify pops 50% on its debut, and they're not talking about this move. They're talking about the IPO price was like 18, and then it debuted at.
And you know what? Rivian did the same thing. I'm hoping we can get to that, because I was taken aback at the ferociousness of the day 2 run in Rivian. I guess I shouldn't have been, but I was, because it seemed to go straight down.
Yeah, let's skip through to that one then, or Black Blaze again, $2 taker, just right on the debut, $2 and you're out. Hold, and you can hold these and they come back in. I wanted to show you one thing about holding IPOs, and again, why I don't consider playing the debut to be super risky is okay. People who played this Coco Water, you guys were talking about it this morning. It was actually not a good debut play. And which is why, when people ask me, oh, what do you think of this company? I'll say, well, for a long-term position, I wouldn't suggest buying the debut, but you do want to start watching it then, because then you kind of know where its range is, where it trends. But if you did say, oh no, this one's going to do great, everyone loves it, I'm gonna buy the debut, and you got stuck in it and you didn't get any kind of day 2 run. I've held IPO debuts for usually about a month before you're going to see if it's going to turn around or not. And the catalyst you're looking for after the debut is the end of the media or the press release kind of silence period, I guess they call it, and the first earnings report. Now, these guys happen to come in with a very strong earnings report. And if you had liked this company enough to buy the debut and you had the conviction to buy it there, why not hold it here, see what it does? And, today you finally got, today was the first day after a month basically of trading that you got an opportunity to take your profits. Do you stop there? Probably I do. If I'm holding a bag and I'm given the opportunity to cut it for non-loss, I'm out. Very rarely will I hold longer than day 2, have it come back, and then say, no, I'm going to get greedy. That's only hurt me when I've tried to be, pigs get slaughtered. Anyway, Vaccinity, buy the halt, buy the debut. This had a ton of buzz, low float, sell the halt right there, easiest buy. take your profits, say thank you. Derm debut below. Where did I put Rivian? Okay,
there we go. Okay,
there we go.
I would love your thoughts here because it seemed like you just went straight down, and
so Rivian did, and I want to pull it up on. If you give me a second, I will pull it up, and we can look at the chart here. So Rivian did pretty much exactly what I said it would do. Two things. One, I had just taken a win on what was it? The Backblaze, or the one that was earlier in the day. And after I take a win, I'll often just be like, okay, that's the one I wanted. I can try to keep playing more, but I end up starting to make bad decisions and try to control against that. Rivian was, on one hand, how much more social media buzz and momentum could you ask for than an EV play when Tesla just broke 1,000? And it had a lot of other great, had a lot of good storylines to it. The Amazon deal, it's Ford as an investor, but had a huge float. And I don't like huge floats. The float's 153 million shares. And I think I said on the show that it reminded me a bit of Snowflake and Coinbase. And my theory was that we'd get about 10, 15 minutes of upward momentum and then correction, which is exactly what we saw. And for me, I'm not long EVs. I still think that, at some point in the not so distant future, the market is going to realize that selling vehicles is only so profitable that not everybody is just going to buy one model. And, they got supply chain issues. It just, the valuations on these don't line up with what automobiles have traditionally sold for. And I think eventually we see that. I don't know when it's going to happen. Clearly it wasn't this week. And I did, so I was in the gym and I was watching, the ticker in between sets. And when I saw it kind of come here, I think I got off my run and it was 100. I thought, I already missed that dip here, but maybe that's the place to buy for the day 2 media run, because this is clearly going to get a ton of media hype. And then it started moving down again, and I kind of said, maybe it's not as hot as I thought it was. But clearly, if you saw this and bought in for the day 2, and you're in an excellent position. It's at 150.
I mean, today, Clayton just pointed out, I had lost sight of it. Yeah, I mean, we did we hit 150? Yeah, we did. We hit 150. Holy cow!
34.
Holy moly.
So if I had pulled that day, that day 1 trigger down here, I would have sold at maybe 120 anyway. I just don't like, I went through, over the weekend, and I really needed to do a bit of a self-evaluation of my trading. And I make so much more on IPO and sort of like, I like the SPAC guys like Mitch and blanking on his name, the guy that does the SPAC show.
Chris.
Yeah, Mitch and Chris. So they have, the amount of money that they've made for traders in their like the SPAC catalyst to me is kind of similar to the IPO. It's like, it's coming up. That it's going to have a merger vote. That it's going to de-SPAC and become, a name. And that's going to be a media, the next door. That was pretty obvious media catalyst. And it went from like 11 to 18 in one day. So these kind of, I like SPACs and IPOs because where, it's so easy to time what's going to happen with everything else. An FDA announcement that's going to come off market, or whoever gets the news first is going to get it, and it's going to spike right up. You don't know that that's coming. For these other plays, and I look back and I've done so well on these. Whereas swing trades, where you're trying to find the bottom and read the trend, and you have to wait, a long time to make your money. Whereas in IPOs, I want to make money in like 1 or 2 days. I keep my, my money in cash. The market can crash one day and I'm not exposed. And I'm just to me, it fits my style of trading. If you can't sit there and play these in real time, glued to your screen all day, then it's not a great trade. If you're good at day trading and reading charts and all that stuff, maybe that's better for you. I'm not. I end up, with a long list of bags waiting for them to turn around. I like to get in, get out, hold for 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 if I really think it's hot. And maybe I should have read this one a little bit more. It's at a price where it could come down a lot more as well. So, never been great with EVs, but we'll see. This week there's a lesson to take forward from this week that maybe we will be able to catch. So let's jump through Vaccinity. I think we've covered those. So this week's featured IPOs. Do you want to say anything more about Rivian?
No, I was just curious to hear how you played it. I mean, I sort of lost sight of it today, so I was surprised to see it at 150. I felt like going in, we were jonesing for a rug pull. Clearly that was wrong. That was wrong, but it just sort of had those vibes to me. But hey, sometimes the obvious play is the play. So what do we have this week? Ooh,
Mitch is asking me when I became a SPAC fan. The first SPAC that I really banked money on was what was that? Nikola. So I've been in SPACs since which I think was pretty much the second one.
That was the second big one of this.
Yeah, that was after FanDuel, and I got FanDuel like the day after it de-SPACed, or not FanDuel, DraftKings.
DraftKings.
Yeah, so I got
nice.
And that was like, I didn't really know what a SPAC was, and I think a lot of
no one knew what a SPAC was in May of 2020.
So that put them on the maps, put us on the map. And since then, I've played TMC, Mitch and Chris's. I got IonQ. I got. They're a handful. They've been pretty good, and you just don't get greedy. Take your profits and. Look for the next one. I almost always sell. But by the time I see, 20 or 30% up, I'm just like, yep, sell, thanks, buy, and freeze up the cash. And then they run up to like 100% gainers, but that's okay. I have 2 rules in trading. They are written here so I don't forget. They are you can't read them. Take profits without regret, and don't chase. Those are my 2 rules. As long as I stick to those, every time I break those, I get myself in trouble. When I stick to those rules, I do pretty well.
Looking at the calendar, I saw one name that jumped out to me. So let's rip through the boring ones.
Sure. Sono Group is not so boring when you consider it's solar coating for EVs, and they do have.
Oh, this has sexy written all over it.
Yeah, and they don't have any revenues. No point in going over financials. They do have $50 million in customer deposits for their Scion vehicle. As I understand, those are deposits that I don't know what the refundability is on those, but when you combine 2 hot, you're talking about eco, solar, and EV, that's how much more do you want there? I mean, you can't put Bitcoin in it, can you? So
not yet.
Yeah, right. That you can buy with Bitcoin. That would be the next catalyst. If they mine Bitcoin with the spare solar power, then maybe you could pump this up even more than it is. But this is about as much kind of hype buzzwords you could cram into something right now. And I got to try this one because all right. So this is Wednesday.
SCV on Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday. We don't have any until Wednesday. Kind of a little bit thinner week this week. Iris Energy. This is a Bitcoin miner. They don't hold Bitcoin on its balance sheets apparently, but if Bitcoin keeps
how is that possible?
Maybe they just sell it right away. I'll dig in.
They just mine it and they sell it. All right, okay, that's something new.
I gotta research a little bit more, but they do have positive cash flow and operating profit, which leads me to believe that they are selling these. And they're using IPO money to buy more hardware. So if they're successfully mining, why not scale up? Especially when the price of Bitcoin, at least a lot of people believe it's headed to, to 100,000. So unless Bitcoin crashes before Wednesday, this looks like a pretty hot play. SDIG and a couple of all the other Bitcoin IPOs have done pretty well. So 8.27 million shares, that's a pretty low float. I like this. The trend is your friend. Bitcoins are trending. So we've got Bitcoin solar cars.
Matt, with all these IPOs, so we've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. None of them have priced yet, right? Do we have an expected range?
We have the ranges, but we don't have the pricing and the pricing can change, especially for the hot ones. Can change dramatically.
Can you give the range on these if you have them?
Yeah, let me give them a sec. Okay, for Oh, they might have pulled SEV already. That's too bad. Let me see. Sono price range 14 to 16.
Okay.
We've got IREN 25 to 27. So for the hot ones, we often see them get bumped by a dollar or two, price out of range, price at the high end. When things start pricing at the low end, then unless if you get a discount to that, then okay, maybe that's interesting. In other words, the debut comes live below the IPO price. That's been a pretty safe play as it works its way back up to the IPO price. You would expect not a lot of IPO buyers are selling for an immediate loss. So, but kind of pricing in the middle, that has not been a very good sign of strength. And I'm, generally sitting on the sidelines for those.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, solar, EV, and Bitcoin to lead off the schedule. Those, Wednesday should be fun. User testing. This is a platform for companies to test user engagement processes. Maybe it's a good business. Revenue's up 44% in the last 9 months. Gross profit up 51%. But negative cash flow, negative operating loss, negative income. This is kind of just one of those SaaS plays where I've never heard of this company before. It reminds me a little bit of this company was like Internet Advertising Program, IAP or something. I don't know. These, if there's no brand recognition, they have to be really strong to get people to come in and buy them. And there's also a sort of odd follow-on offering lurking in it's not a lockup expiration, but they have the right to sell an additional 27 million shares if the price is 10% above the IPO price. It's something like over 10 days in the previous week or something like that. The point is that the debut price will likely be over 10% to begin with. So if the IPO price on this is 15 to 17, let's say they debut at 17 or 18, and then it actually debuts at 20. So if the IPO price is 17 or 18 and debut at 20, you're already at that 10% level, and then it's 100 days or something, 90 days. Then they can sell 27 additional shares, which almost double, it's more than doubles the float. And I don't really like it when I see those kinds of things. It just gives me shivers, like remembering what Copang had hidden in its lockup period, which was probably the worst IPO I can recall playing.
Yeah, that was a doozy.
Debuted at like 60 or 65 and is now at 27 and never even gave you like a courtesy rebound at any point, really. It just was a downward dumpster fire.
That was a doozy. All right, so not super interesting here.
No.
Fair enough.
Braze. Now this one is, it's similar. It's customer engagement and communication. Revenue is up 52.6%. Gross profits up 60%. Again, negative baselines, and unfortunately, it comps to Weaver, which last week did not do well on its debut. And Braze has a higher valuation, but I think it might appeal to more businesses. So I don't know, 8 million shares. It's just, I don't feel super good about these. And given that there are others that I do like more this week, I probably just let these pass. I can't play every single IPO. There are people who have that approach, for them, and they really manage those trades. They're better at day trading than I am. They buy on the dip and just hold it forever sometimes. But this one, to me, both of these sort of user testing and Braze are both in customer engagement. If user testing somehow does well, maybe that changes my opinion on Braze, but I'm looking forward more to this one. This is Sweet Garden. Now, we talked before about how restaurant chains have done really well on their IPOs, and I kind of include Bros in that in that group because it's a chain. It does well on on a limited number of locations. The theory being, well, if you raise a bunch of money and expand it nationwide, it'll do even better. So this one is like kind of, I guess they say plant forward, which I read as vegetarian, but I guess they probably have some meat in there somewhere. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I'm gonna look a little bit deeper. I'm not a vegetarian, but hey, everybody got to eat how they want to. But interestingly, they acquired this company called Spice Food. And this company looks pretty interesting. They're basically like a robotic powered restaurant system. So you're kind of getting a technology angle on a restaurant chain. And given what Bros did, given what Portillo's did, even FWRG, which is some breakfast restaurant that I'd never heard of, chain, has done did well off of its IPO debut. So these guys are.
Did you see that article last week that robot sales, like industrial robot sales, are at like an all-time high?
So I did see that, and that kind of makes me feel like this is in alignment with some of the trending topics in the market right now.
Okay.
So they're rebounding out of COVID. Revenue's up 50%. I mean, the revenue numbers mean nothing. We've talked about this before. If you're going to compare how a restaurant did for any, the last 6 months, 9 months, 39 weeks, whatever, to the year before, we're still making comparisons to COVID. And I just kind of have to throw those out the window. Negative cash flow, net income, and operating loss. I don't love though to see that in a restaurant industry. Others have been, I think, Portillo's was, positive in its financials. But I said, I'm not going to miss the next chain restaurant play. And Bros, Portillo, and FWRG, they all did well off their IPOs. It's 12.5 million shares. It's got healthiness to it. It's got the sort of, and although, Oatly did badly today and Beyond Meat hasn't done well, there is still a demand for kind of health forward, plant forward eating. And I want to give a restaurant chain, I'm going to stick with the trend there and try the restaurant chain.
Healthy food alternatives not hot right now though. So
no, then maybe we get a reasonable entry price on this as well.
All right, that's the glass half full approach. Okay, fair enough. KinderCare Learning.
Main thing is just again. So KinderCare Learning.
This is not
8 education centers. Blah blah blah. 1,500 locations. Reopening momentum. They make revenue.
Can I say something? This should not be allowed to be a public company. I'm sorry.
Just too
this
boring.
Should not. No. Forget that. This should not be a for-profit. Childcare in the U.S. is so unaffordable. Yeah. And now we have companies that are going to be publicly traded that have to answer to investors and answer to Wall Street about their stock price and their margins and their EBITDA.
China just made that move a few months ago and killed all the the private.
This should not. That might not be a popular opinion, but I mean, this should not be a publicly traded company. I mean, we're talking about childcare. Whatever. Just tell us about the IPO.
Gross profits are up 134%, but again, we're talking about comps to lockdown, so can't count much in there. They do have positive baseline financials, so cash flow, income, operating profit are all positive. So it's a big company. I mean, you're talking about 1,500 locations, and I mean, we're a capitalistic society. If our if the socialistic approach to education is not working, the private market's gonna is our only hope of otherwise we're just gonna have who's going to be the educated future. I mean, I agree with you. I think, but we're talking about.
But we have the socialistic approach. We have the socialistic approach to K through 12. It's just pre-K that people, for some reason, don't want to do it on.
This is ages 6 to 12, so this competes with
public school. Okay.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Ages 6 to 12.
I think it's a lot of like preschool and after school. I kind of skipped over it because I just sort of like, maybe.
This company's pissing me off. Next.
All right. That's what she wants to change the subject. All right.
6 weeks to 12 years old.
Oh, 6 weeks. Wait. Okay. Whatever.
Youngins. Okay. Yeah. They're filling a need there. I have an 18-month-old kid, child, and there are days when we would like to just put her in someone else's care if we found someone trustworthy.
I bet.
All right. I love my daughter. I love spending time with her, but it's a lot for. Anyway, Austin Gold. This one is sort of like, maybe. It's a gold exploration company in Nevada with corporate offices in Vancouver. They are pre-revenue, which means they basically just are exploring right now. The website is horribly lacking. It looks like something a kind of intern might build as a test project in a web development company. And for me, that's a red flag. I mean, there's pages where it says like error content missing on their press releases. Their investor page is basically blank. And since I am
that's a good sign.
Web designer developer, I do find that, especially for these sort of low float, under the radar IPOs, unless I'm looking for it to be terrible, not having a solid website is sort of like, I don't know how seriously I can take this company if they don't even have an updated website.
I'm with you.
One interesting thing, though, is that some people I know who have some knowledge of Nevada and gold mining said that these guys are operating, the 4 areas that they're operating in are the right areas to be operating in. And the CEO just last week sold his previous company for $2.8 billion, which was its Iridium Resources. And he sold it at something like a 30-40% premium to the share price. So shareholders are happy with that. The float is 3 million shares, but Roth Capital is not a particularly loved underwriter. They must have done something. I still haven't nailed it down, but they have sort of a reputation for screwing IPO buyers, and people tend to avoid them. We've also seen a lot of their IPOs just seem to get terminally rescheduled. And
all right, Matt, we're up against the clock. We got it. Look at that. We're on time. Yes, awesome. Matt Hammond runs IPO Warriors, joins us every Monday to run through the week slate in IPO land. We appreciate that, Matt. Always a pleasure.
Go to the newsletter. Get the newsletter, IPOwarriors.com. I'm going to start adding some more kind of featured breakdowns on individual IPOs. My kind of longer term vision is to have time to make videos to put on there as well, to break down some of these with a little bit more in-depth analysis of the actual financials, what I'm reading on Twitter, that kind of thing. So stay tuned, sign up for the newsletter, follow me on Twitter. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
All right, thanks a lot, Matt. All right, let's keep it going here. Our next guest has been waiting patiently backstage. Doug Drysdale, I mentioned him at the top of the show. He's the CEO of Cybin, ticker CYBN. AB, let's bring him on the show.
How we doing, Doug? Happy Monday. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us here on Benzinga Live. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks for having me today.
You're welcome. So real quick, before we get started, for some of our audience that may not be familiar, do you mind just giving us a quick rundown of what it is that Cybin does and what the mission is there?
Yeah, so Cybin is a biopharmaceutical company, and we're working to transform psychedelic drugs that we've known about for decades now into actual therapeutics for mental health disorders like depression, addiction, and anxiety disorders.
Got it. So last week, I know we saw some news about CYB003. So that's one of your guys' proprietary drugs. Do you mind just overviewing that news real quick?
Yeah, last week was actually an historic week in the many decades that people have been working on trying to transform these molecules into actual therapeutics. 2 pieces of data became available. One was from one of our peers that for the first time in a 200+ patient study, unequivocally proving that psilocybin, which is the active ingredient that comes originally from magic mushrooms, proving that it works in depression, in helping to treat people with depression, both a solid and robust result. At the same time, Cybin released data showing that finally, after decades, we're able to completely transform this molecule and turn it into something that's actually useful as a therapeutic. The downside with psilocybin historically has been that clinic times are 8 hours. So your patients are in the clinic for 8 hours at a time, and significant side effects and adverse events. And with CYB3, we've shown that we can cut the clinic time in half, and we can reduce potential for side effects like nausea and headache and other adverse events in half as well. So a major breakthrough.
So essentially, you're saying that psilocybin on its own, which like you mentioned, is what's found in magic mushrooms, has been proven to help with depression, but there have been downsides to just taking oral psilocybin. So with CYB3, you were able to kind of address some of those downsides to the actual psilocybin.
Exactly. So we've taken psilocybin, we've made it synthetically in the lab, And then we've modified it to improve the profile so that it has a safer profile for patients, and they spend half the time in the clinic.
Got it. So for some people out there that may have some of these psychological disorder, major depression disorder, bipolar, I know some of them have tried a lot of different things, and different medicines on the market don't work. So is this something that can be seen as an alternative to helping these patients when those other medicines don't seem effective?
Yeah, once approved, I hope so. When you look historically back at how we treat depression, we typically use drugs called SSRIs, which are like Prozac. And when you look back over the last couple of decades, on average, SSRIs typically are no better than placebo in patients with mild to moderate depression. And many patients try 2 or 3 or more of those SSRIs before running out of options. And so CYB3 now provides, once it's approved, another option for patients to tackle their depression, addiction, and anxiety disorder.
Doug, this is Spencer here. I want to ask you about the headline we got late last week, and we're getting again here today about just the Republican bill to legalize cannabis. I sort of group these two things together. I know they're not really technically the same thing, but I sort of look at psychedelics as sort of following the cannabis lead in every respect in terms of just regulation and capital markets. I'm wondering if the move by the GOP, if that has sort of changed the equation at all for psychedelic regulation at large in the US, or not really?
No, not really. They're quite different. So I see that there's a general sentiment change towards looking at these alternative types of treatments, and that's all positive. But we're looking at drug development that needs to go through the FDA, and we have studies planned that are coming up in early next year. FDA has granted breakthrough therapy status to psilocybin, so they've indicated that this molecule is really potentially important in mental health. And DEA just came out and said that manufacturers should be making more of these substances to allow more research to be done. So I think we're seeing very positive signs for both DEA and FDA when it comes to turning these molecules into actual therapeutics that can be prescribed by a physician.
So Doug, is there a lot of opposition from, I guess, what you could call like big pharma, some of the producers of these SSRIs that see this field as maybe something that's emerging as a competitor to them? So do you see that opposition from big pharma?
No, I think the big pharma will see this as an opportunity. When you look across the big pharma space, many of their psychiatry departments have gone. Over the years, they've become neurology departments. And so there's really been very little innovation in psychiatry in maybe 30 years. So when you look at the total addressable market of all of these indications that psychedelic companies are working towards, it's around $300 billion annually. So I think the big pharma will absolutely be interested in this. It's a space where there's been very little innovation for several decades.
So, Doug, for Cybin, I mean, the namesake comes from psilocybin in mushrooms, but I understand that you're working on other drugs as well. Which other, drugs are you working with outside of psilocybin?
Yes, we're working on some other molecules that are related. These molecules are called tryptamines, which are all like serotonin, which is a naturally occurring neurotransmitter in your brain. So we're working on some other tryptamines for anxiety disorders. We're also working on a range of molecules called phenethylamines. And these are molecules that are related to MDMA or mescaline that might help with PTSD in the future. So we have about 50 molecules in our library currently, and we're taking our lead 2 candidates into the clinic very shortly.
Wow. So for investors, our audience here is mostly retail investors, some day traders. What can they be looking out for just not with Cybin particularly, but just in the industry as a whole? Like, are we so early stage that maybe, we continue to see some of these names get beaten down, or do you think it'll be pretty quickly once we start seeing, okay, people are really noticing that, hey, look, in the psychedelic space, this has actual value and potential, and we can see those investors start coming in?
Yeah, there has been a bit of a rush over the last couple of years, companies rushing into this space. But I think we're moving from a period of news to a period of data. So Cybin was one of the first companies to release data this last week. And I think those data points will start to really separate companies from each other and differentiate them. So look out for data that's coming out of clinical studies over the next 6 to 12 months. And that'll really set some of these companies apart, I think, from some earlier stage organizations that are not quite up to speed yet.
Good question here from our chat. How does the FDA's new designation for Cybin's work affect the timeline for commercialization? This is from SolarUp.
Yeah, potentially the breakthrough therapy status could accelerate the timeline to commercialization. There's two things really. The first is that FDA performs a rolling review, and that just means that they look at the data that you submit in real time, not in lumps at certain time points, and that's much more efficient. You also get to collaborate with FDA and ask questions, which means that instead of guessing what they're looking for, you can take advice on what they're looking for. And typically with breakthrough therapy status 2, FDA requires perhaps just one phase 3 study, which are the big expensive studies, rather than 2. So that could save time and cost of coming to market as well.
Got it. So do you have any like ballpark timeline on when you hope to get some of these drugs through the pipeline with FDA approval?
Yes. So unfortunately, drug development is quite slow, but for good reason.
Kidding.
Treatments have to be safe, and they have to be tested well so that they can be prescribed for patients. So from where we are today, we're looking at the kind of 4 to 5 year time frame still to get through those major clinical studies, with the first one kicking off in early 2022.
And then from Brendo, likewise with cannabis, or as what happened to cannabis, do you foresee it being a case of we get medical first, then recreation, and then later on some states doing both at the same time? Or
yeah, I don't think so. These are very much going down the pharmaceutical route, and the concept here is that they would be given under supervision in a clinical setting and combined with psychotherapy. So patients will go through a period of therapy associated with their treatment. And it seems to be the combination of the psychotherapy and the molecule and the drug itself that lead to these good outcomes. In some studies, we've seen 4 times the effect size of SSRIs, so 4 times greater effect at treating depression when combining the psychotherapy with the molecule. So it's hard to see with this current generation of molecules that there'll be a recreational element.
Okay, makes sense.
So, Doug, have you seen a big shift over the last couple of years just in sentiment regarding some of these drugs becoming, like viable treatments? Because I'm sure, 5 years ago, there would be doctors that scoffed and said, oh, this isn't real medicine, et cetera. But now it seems like more and more people are taking this field seriously.
And it's not just doctors. I mean, first of all, psychiatrists are typically fairly open-minded about trying new treatments for their patients. But then you add in the FDA and the DEA throwing their support behind this work. And then also major blue chip biotech funds, that many of which have invested in Cybin, are really getting behind this as well. And when you start to see the smart money getting into the space, and you know there's real potential.
Got it. So I think you mentioned that in the last 30 years, there hasn't been that much, development or improvement in psychiatric care. And I think one of the problems is that a lot of doctors, see it as, okay, I'm going to prescribe someone, this SSRI, and that should help alleviate the symptoms or help solve the problem. But, oftentimes a lot of psychiatrists talk about some more holistic measures on top of the medicine. Is Cybin, looking at some of these other holistic, things people can do to improve their mental health outside of the drug? Or is it simply you're just trying to develop this molecule that you think will be a better option?
Well, it starts with the molecule. Let's make sure that these molecules have a realistic duration that can be scalable. And let's make sure they're safe and well tolerated so we minimize the side effects. But you also want to make sure, given the nature of these molecules, that they're given in a safe environment. So we've created a psychotherapy program called Embark. It takes in 6 domains of best practice psychotherapy, and we're using that to train therapists that will apply the therapy in our clinical trials. And we're making that open source so therapists can get trained if they want to do that, but also to make sure that we're applying psychotherapy in a consistent way and putting patients in a safe environment.
Yeah, I was just curious if that was part of the, I guess, quote unquote treatment plan. Is like, okay, we'll get this patient on, say, CYB3, but that patient should also be getting, I don't know, X amount of hours of sleep a week or exercise, having the other things that help factor into someone's mental health outside of just what drugs they're taking.
Yeah, of course. I mean, exercise, eating well, getting good sleep are all good contributors to mental health. When we look back at some of the academic studies that have been performed using psychedelic drugs, those that have reduced or eliminated the psychotherapy have been shown to be less effective. So it really does seem to be a combination of the psychotherapy and the drug together. So it forms a kind of a package that helps people overcome the trauma that's underlying their depression or their addiction.
So Doug, what drew you to this industry? I mean, do you have more of a psychiatric background or more of a chemistry background? You know, how did you get here?
Yeah, I started out my career in a lab, but I've been in pharmaceuticals and the healthcare industry for 30 years. So I've been developing drugs for that time. And, you know, like most of us, you guys too, I'm sure, we all know someone, you know, a loved one, family, friends has been affected by depression or addiction, suicide. It's tragic. It seems it's all around us. So in 30 years of drug development, I don't think I've had an opportunity in that time to help as many people in such a profound way as we can with psychedelics. So it's our mission to really turn these into therapeutics once and for all.
So, but do you have anything that drew you particularly to psychedelics, or was it just that you identified that, hey, this is a good opportunity here to maybe help tackle some of these problems once and for all?
Well, they're truly groundbreaking. I mean, like I said, I have family and friends that have been deeply impacted by this. And to be able to combine your work with helping the people that you love is never a bad thing. And it's rare that you see data like we see with psychedelics and how profound the effect can be. Literally patients who have spent years of addiction walking away from a psychedelic session and free from those addictive cravings for weeks or months at a time from just one session. I've not seen anything like that in my career. So this is an enormous opportunity.
Got it. Well, Doug, thank you for coming on the show today. We will have to get you back on as Cybin announces more data and news. I know a lot of us here at Benzinga are kind of, you know, following this industry closely and very fascinated by the, you know, the progress that has been made so far. So, Doug, thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, it's 1 o'clock. We're gonna have our next guest on in a second. Before I bring him on, though, AB, did you see what Luminar is doing today? LAZR.
LAZR, we had them on the show on Friday.
Yeah, and we're up 11% today. Let's go. I'm not saying Benzinga is why Luminar is up 11% today, but I'm also not saying Benzinga is not why.
Yeah,
Luminar
I've heard that's what the kids on the street are calling the Benzinga bump.
But, oh, I thought that was something different. Hey, I got Aaron to laugh at that one. I got both Aarons to laugh at that one.
Oh man. All right. Well.
All right.
I don't even know how to follow that up, so I'm just gonna bring my man Jake on the stream. Jake, how we doing?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
What's up? Jake Wujastyk from TrendSpider. Jake, I thought of you this morning because we're talking about GrowGen, and I know that's one of your favorites. So I'm sure you're happy today.
I do like it. Yeah. No, I have it as a long-term investment. It's not something I actively trade. So okay. I just keep dollar cost averaging in. But yeah, definitely a nice day. Kind of a weird market out there, honestly. Got a lot of what I like to call Christmas colors in the watch list. You don't really have, you know, a lot of green, a lot of red. It's just kind of just every other stock I have in the watch list is either red or green. So getting the Christmas color vibe there right now. But definitely kind of weird with SPY's weekly candle from last week. That's something that does have me a little cautious. I did kind of lighten some of my positions today. It was definitely a huge week for me last week in the trading arena, so I definitely don't want to be giving back profits. So I did lighten things up. I still think marijuana is probably just getting started, but you know, we have to kind of look at the broad markets before we look at individual names too much. And yeah, so with SPY, I'd really want to get above last week's high for this to be a little bit of a more risk on sentiment. But Bitcoin as well, you had this weird pump last night, and now all of a sudden you're back to where we started. So just kind of a weird market. It is OPEX this week, so that's something to keep in mind.
But great.
Yeah, so that's, you know, I'm not in any options positions this week for that reason. Just you have some crazy moves, and you know, for me, I'm just in some common stock positions. But yeah, Bitcoin is the main thing that I'm kind of keeping an eye on here with definitely some rejection. And Bitcoin is honestly probably more of a risk on, risk off sentiment indicator than even like IWM. IWM used to be my go-to, and now it's really Bitcoin. The fact that we're about to break 64K here and getting rejected at these previous highs is definitely worth noting. So we'll have to see what happens, but I definitely am a little more cautious than I think I probably would have been last week.
I'm not used to hearing this out of you, Jake.
Yeah, I know. I'm generally pretty bullish because the charts have been bullish, and I do think that the markets, overall still look good. I mean, IWM, if you look at IWM on the daily chart at least, we still have the SR flip. So that's simply just meaning previous resistance became support. But all in all, just based on Bitcoin's kind of weird price action today, I am a little cautious. And, some people may say, well, what does Bitcoin have to do with the broad markets? It's actually a very good way to gauge, overall liquidity in the market. So anytime you see Bitcoin selling off, it's always worth noting. So yeah, no, like you said, I usually am not too cautious with the markets when they're showing strength, but I am a little, especially with it being OPEX week, options expiration week, which for some people who are not familiar with OPEX, it's just when monthly expirations occur. So yeah, I'm a little cautious. I definitely have raised quite a bit of cash, but I do have some open positions. So CGC, that's one that I do have an open position on.
Yeah.
And the main reason is simply because we're just pretty much retesting this previous resistance for now. So you've got this area, always is going to be a zone with me. I don't have an exact trend line that we're going to be looking at for a bounce. You've got this zone, and then if we just kind of highlight this area here, highlighted by these green areas, technically we're just retesting that right now. So nothing that I'm too worried about right now. I mean, if you look at the weekly candle, this was a pretty big reversal here on the weekly, and you can see that we had a very similar candle when we reversed back in March of 2020 around COVID. We did have this type of candle. So
that's true. And what's the other one there? I can't even really tell when. So just to the left, that guy too. So there's this natural reflex when you see a big green candle like the one we just got to say, oh, but it's already come so far so fast. But if you look at the previous times we got candles that big, that was the start of something. That was a movement. I don't know if it was movement or not, but it was a start of a change in trend.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the daily, this is the main thing I'm looking at is this long-term trend that kind of finally broke to the upside. So if you draw, where did I have that drawn? Of course, I don't have it on the chart now. I don't think I used this one. It was just a little too, where did I draw it? Well, even here, I mean, you can see that we technically, depending on where you draw the trend line, need to still break out a little bit. But the main thing that I think I had was here. I did use the wick here. So I just drew it kind of here. And if you look, all we did was we just kind of retested the previous resistance last week, bounced off of it. Now the main level is horizontal price action. So before it was diagonal that I was looking at. Now it's more this horizontal level that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. And definitely still have a position, just not as heavy. Because at least for me, if the broad markets are showing any signs of possible caution, I'm not going to be heavy in individual names because sure, some individual names will do well, but overall, a majority of them will have trouble playing out as these individual setups if you do have the market kind of being a little weird. So CGC is definitely one that I'm keeping my eye on. A lot of people are kind of looking at the US based stocks right now for kind of the bigger move. For me personally, I like GRWG because it's not an OTC. That's why I'm not a huge fan of some of these US names yet, because they're OTC. You don't have as much liquidity, you don't have as much volume. And, I just really don't like 5-letter tickers either. So I'm just kidding. But I definitely haven't gotten too deep into the TC, NNFs and all of those just because they are still OTC. That may change in the future if things go well with this potential federal legalization. But for now, my proxy would be GRWG to play. And you can see even this is having a little trouble getting past those previous highs from last week. So all in all, this is one that I have long-term. It's not something that I really actively trade. It's just something that I've kind of bought and will continue to hold on to.
Can I offer you another proxy? Now, full disclosure, this thing has already run up a bit here, but MSOS.
Yep. That's the other one too. That's and this is the time to start at least paying attention to the monthly candles. I mean, we still have half of a month left, but generally you want to at least get an idea of what they look like. MSOS already has an outside bar. Regardless of where it closes, the range of this bar is already pretty much overlapping this entire previous month's range. Pretty much had 1, 2, 3, 6 red months in a row. So I'm thinking this is probably ready to move higher over the longer term. We'll see what happens. I think today, is it only up 1.4%? It was up like 5% today.
I mean, it's off its high of the day, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I'm definitely watching this one for a proxy. And this one may be one that I do enter. But for now, I've got CGC, ACB. I like this one simply because this one just ran the most last time we had a weed run. And if you look at today's candle, it looks pretty similar to this candle back in November of 2020. You had your initial spike, you had your pullback, and now we may at least have the continuation up the rest of the week. But another one that I have is an active trade for that reason, because it can be a pretty high beta mover. Any names that the chat's wanting to look at today, or anything popular on that side?
Well, we do have a question from Board to Be Free asking if you can show us the strat in TrendSpider. I'm not sure on what specific chart, but
we do have the strat. So I'm not sure, what part of the strat on the platform, but the one thing that we do have is the strat, where you can pretty much label each candle as a 1, 2, 2 up, 2 down, or 3. And so if you do that, you can see that here, and you can scan for these different types of things. You can change the colors, like if you want a 2 up to be green and a 2 down to be red, just right click, go to properties, and you can easily change those different colors. So if we wanted 2 up to be green, just change it to green. 2 down, if we wanted that to be red, just change that to red. And then you'll see those do change. So the strat is something that we do have on the platform, both on the visual side, also on, pattern recognition. Maybe you're wanting to learn how to see these different patterns, kind of train your eye. So you just go, let's say you want to know what a 1, 2 down inside break is. You just click apply here. And anytime you've got one of those, it will show up on the chart. So if maybe you're still learning the strat and you want to just kind of train your eye on what these look like, the pattern recognition is another way you can do it. The scanner, you can go and scan for something like that. So on the strat, if you wanted to go in and look for, whatever. So let's go just type in the strat. Maybe we want to scan through the S&P 500 for current months that are possibly setting up as an outside bar. I know Sarah Strat was actually looking for that today, so I sent that over to her. So if you want to do an outside bar, it says outside bar bullish the strat. So if we want to look for monthly outside bars that are currently forming, just click scan, and any of these bullish outside bars that are currently forming for November will show up. So that's a nice thing about the scanner, is you can scan for something that has not actually closed yet. And that's a big part of the strat, right? It's called being in force, meaning the candle hasn't closed yet. And so that's something that you can use on the scanner when you are using the strat on TrendSpider. So hopefully that helped. I'm not sure if there was a particular name they wanted to see the strat on, but that's how you can use it.
I think you just wanted to see the studies. So that was helpful. We do have some takers flying in the chat here. Okay, I'll go to you laterally because you were specific. He asked for a TTCF, but the weekly specifically, or he or she, sorry, I don't know who you are. Laterally, TTCF, the weekly.
All right. Well, it's a little hard to look at the weekly right now because it's only halfway through Monday. We still have 4.5 trading days left in the week, but for now, you've just kind of got this inside bar forming. For me, I'd probably just look at the daily because, you know, that's where we have a little more, we're about to close in a couple hours on the market. So I'd be looking at this. You do have an inside bar here. You do have higher lows. So that's something to also keep in mind. But for now, you know, this thing is definitely getting hit over the last 2 months or so. And I have no idea what this company does or if it's got any catalysts or anything, but at least it's
Tattooed Chef. I guess you're not a fan of the Tattooed Chef. No,
I don't even know what that is. What is it?
Do you like Beyond Meat?
No.
The product, not the stock.
No, neither.
Then you're not gonna like Tattooed Chef.
Okay, so maybe let's see. I can turn on earnings here. Okay, I guess their earnings are coming up in a week and a half or so. So I'm assuming this probably got hit because of BYND earnings. So I'm just curious what they're at right now. Okay, so they did come back a little bit, but they're still having some trouble here. But yeah, if you know, one thing always with charting, if you have earnings coming up, it is really hard to use charts as setups. What you want to use charts for are upside and downside levels to watch. So, you know, if you do want to know quickly if earnings is coming up, just go to other data on TrendSpider and go to earnings here. So once you click that box, you'll see here that these little orange vertical lines will show you when earnings were. So here, you know, last week was earnings for BYND. For TTCF, you can see that orange line is over here for the 26th. And I think we get that data from you guys. So that's data provided by Benzinga. And you'll see here that, you know, I would probably wait until after earnings before I even looked at this, but you know, who knows? It could maybe move up into earnings with people speculating, but definitely seems like it got hit a little bit from that BYND.
And I should clarify, it's not quite the same thing as Beyond Meat, but it is like healthy alternatives. Like they have like cauliflower pizza and that sort of thing. You know, like
I've gotten some Tattooed Chef stuff.
Yeah, I would say
good.
I've had the cauliflower mac and cheese, and that was pretty damn good. But
really?
Yeah, it's a lot of like vegan and vegetarian frozen foods is what it is. So that's what I meant when I said Beyond Meat, because it's similar vegan alternative.
Probably
you get the point.
Yep.
Yeah, you get the point. So sorry if I offended anyone's taste buds. What about? Let's go back to the chat. Tickers from the chat here. We got a few. What about? Doc, you want to look at Doximity? DOCS.
DOCS. Docs. Yeah. So. Another one that recently just had earnings, pretty much hasn't really moved much from that earnings date, but we're kind of in this weird setup here on Docs. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like this is a recent IPO, which for me is was it an
IPO or a SPAC? I never remember. Never keep them straight. I think it was an IPO.
Yeah, because if it was a SPAC, it was probably at 10 at some
point. I think it was an IPO.
But yeah, I mean, for this one, you don't have a lot of price history. So that's something that I always kind of keep in mind. If we did kind of draw this descending trend line here, highlight a zone, you will see that we did break out last week. Maybe we're just doing a retest here from the previous breakout point. You know, we could go down even to around the mid 67s before this kind of maybe catches a bid. But for now, the weekly candle is just starting, so there's not much we can do. But I like to use the weekly candle just to see what the overall setup is. In this case, we just broke out of this downward sloping resistance zone, so that's why I turned it on. But for now, you know, the weekly candle I wouldn't put too much emphasis on. There's just too many trading days left in the week to do that yet. But overall, you did have the long-term breakout or long-term, medium-term, whatever you want to call it, 2.5 months or so. But the daily's not really telling me much at all.
Okay. Sorry, AJ. Let's go back to the chat here. We got a few minutes left with Jake from TrendSpider. GoPro. Okay, we can look at GoPro from Bonsai Buck.
Ooh, hello. Hey.
Yeah.
Some relative strength today, that's for sure. Yeah, I think they had good earnings, or I did see this one. Let's see, turn on other data. Yeah, so earnings was back in early November, and it's gone pretty much straight up since then. So, yeah, this one looks really good. This is one that I would turn on the weekly, not because I want to see what the weekly candle looks like for this week, but just to see, where we are within the trend. So if you look at the longer term resistance here, we're pretty much right at it today. So that would be something to consider. Maybe this brings some breakout buyers in if this does continue to break out. But this is a pretty strong zone. And notice, this is why I want to highlight, this is why I use zones, right? So if we just connected this wick to this wick, we only have, technically, this would be the third time that we tested this area. If we use the zone, we connect this wick to this wick and extend it, and then pull this down. And then all of a sudden, look at what we have now. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 points on the chart before we only had 2. So, and this would be your 5th. So this is why I like to use these zones rather than, and I mean, some people may even pull it back even this far to highlight that too. So this is why I like to use zones. It just captures so much more price action, and it makes this area a lot stronger than if we just used a wick to wick and we only had, this would be the 3rd point on the trend line. So yeah, we're at a pretty crucial area here on GoPro. And if we did continue up, I mean, this is clearly in an uptrend over the last year and a half. And this would definitely be an area to break out. And if that was the case, that's when I turn on kind of the horizontal level mode. And this would be my previous zone to watch around 13. Then the next one would be around 14 or so. So
all right, let's talk about Lucid, LCID. They report earnings, I believe, tonight. I think.
Sounds
good. I know you just said that it's hard going into earnings, but we got asked about this one earlier, and I didn't want to forget about it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, on the daily, you kind of have this breakout a little bit. So, you got a pretty decent little pennant here that you're trying to break out of. So I think that's probably what a lot of people are seeing right now. So let me just remove these arrows. I'm getting all these calls for the Black Friday sale. Phone has been blowing up all morning from our customer line. So this is what I'd be looking at on Lucid. I wouldn't even draw this lower trend line. Maybe if you did draw the lower trend line, start it all the way from like here, and then you can see that we'd kind of have this zone rather than just that trend line. But same thing, you're kind of breaking out here. This is where I would definitely turn on the raindrop chart. Now, remember, we're going into earnings literally today. So, this can completely invalidate the setup. But for now, you do kind of have this pennant breakout. That would be what I'm thinking a lot of people are looking at. I did a recording with Theta Warrior yesterday. He was definitely watching this pennant. So I definitely think this is probably making the market a little bit, the fact that it is breaking out. But the thing is, I would definitely turn on the raindrop and just see where some of this volume at today. And you can see not a ton of volume. It kind of looks like almost like a donut hole or something, like pretty much a circle. That's not a raindrop that I particularly like. I want to see a lot of the volume at the top of the range. The volume is essentially just these squiggly lines on each side. That's showing the volume profile. That's where volume has occurred within today's range. So I don't know. You guys know my thoughts on earnings. I wouldn't hold it into earnings just because there's, you've already got, Rivian, look at Rivian. How many cars have they sold? Not a lot. And the valuation is insane. I think some of these electric vehicle names are just getting out of control with some of these valuations, but who knows? Maybe the market's going to continue to push it up. But one thing I would definitely mention is the gap above. There definitely is still a gap above to around 56. So for the bull case, 56, around 56 fills that gap above. And that was from a previous earnings, I'm pretty sure.
Kushal is asking about Upstart. Kushal, UPST. Upstart is coming off its earnings report from a week ago. Tomorrow. Last Tuesday, their earnings were not great. Actually, the earnings, the headline number was fine, but they reported, actually their earnings were okay, the headline numbers, but I haven't looked too close into it, but for whatever reason, the stock got crushed off its report. So it's mostly been stuck in this little range since then, Kushal. But that's why you dropped last week. You're asking for a fundamental reason. There it is.
Well, and a lot of people, earnings does not mean anything. Earnings is a way for the market to price in what was expected and what wasn't, right? So like if the market's already priced in a lot of what those good earnings were, then the market's going to pull back once those actual numbers come out. It's the same reason why, maybe a company lowers their outlook in the future, because then the market isn't pricing that into the stock.
You're absolutely right.
Yep. The next earnings, all of a sudden you beat the expectations, and that helps the stock price. So I just think there was a lot priced into this already, based on the fact that we did break this previous lows, not looking great. We're breaking down through these VWAPs from the swing low and kind of the handoff period here. So I probably wouldn't touch it. It's another one that I would probably let the dust settle. I generally don't even really look at entering position after earnings unless you've got at least a week or two for the dust to settle. But yeah, this one's looking a little rough.
Okay. George's Q is asking about Nokia. I'm looking at Nokia for a long time. How is NOK doing?
How is it doing?
Very looking at this Nokia chart.
This is a
that's because it trades over in Europe as well, and that's the primary market. So even though it trades on the NYSE in the US, the primary market I believe is London, I want to say, and so it'll just do whatever happens over there. So that's why you get these overnight gaps.
Yeah, it looks kind of like a gold ETF or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nokia. I mean, you've got this kind of abandoned baby forming here, but the problem is that's just what this setup's called.
I know. I love it. I love the abandoned baby setup.
I would never abandon Cuba. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, what time is it? It's like 2.5 hours left in the market, so this could easily change. But you do have a little bit of a that type of setup forming. This is like a meme stock, right? I mean, this had kind of its meme.
It was briefly, not anymore. I don't really know why this thing caught the bid back in, what is that, January? I'm not quite sure.
Because it had this similar idea of just like
with BlackBerry? Is that what it was?
Well, BlackBerry and Game, just companies that have been kind of defunct over time and had so much.
So everyone's favorite technology company from 2003.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
People were trying to somehow bring Blockbuster stock.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Funny. Yeah. So, I mean, the long-term trend is up. If you want to kind of gauge that from around November 2020. Now, the thing is, you do have this support zone way below down here in the 520s. So who knows? Maybe it gets there. You do have this huge gap. I guess let's see if that was from earnings. Yeah, this was an earnings gap back in April. So earnings just happened last week of October. I don't know. For me, it's not really, at least so there's ways to look at the trend, right? The longer term trend, we have these higher lows. The shorter term trend here, we're pretty much just kind of chopping around. I mean, if you look at the range here, we can pretty much draw it in a box. So it's not really doing a lot right now. So for me, I probably wouldn't really gauge my interest, but who knows? Maybe we get a move up. But yeah, it's stuck right now.
Okay, we'll do one more. Let me just check if this is what I'm thinking of. Yes, no, it wasn't. But okay, PROG. Progenity.
Okay, I've heard this.
I wasn't sure if that was progressive, but it's not. That's PGR. PROG. I don't know about PROG, but maybe Jake has thoughts on the chart. I'm not sure.
Let's see.
That volume is Look at that volume.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
What?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people talk about this one. I think it's relatively low market cap. I'm not sure, honestly, but yeah, today it's having a good day. But if you look just at the basic trend, we're still kind of in this area where we've got a short-term downward sloping lower highs, but I would definitely want to see a close above around 380 for this thing to really kind of maybe test these previous highs around 4 and then 440. And that's simply just literally taking these previous highs and extending a trend line over. Nothing fancy.
Hey guys, Jake Wujastyk joins us every single Monday. And by the way, if you want TrendSpider, check it out.
Yeah,
we have our own offer code. The offer code is on the screen.
I would say
BZ25.
We do have the Black Friday sale going on today. It's 65% off. So that is going to be the biggest deal. I'm not sure if you guys have the link to share, but you can also just go to trendspider.com. 65% off today. We do have a sale going on until, I think Cyber Monday. So what it does is it drops every day. So it's 65 today, it's 64 tomorrow, 63 the next day. So this is definitely going to be the highest discount percentage that we have. I was going to say the lowest price kind of that you'll be able to do for today. So definitely check it out. We definitely want you to be able to try it out first. So if you do even start your free trial today, you'll be locked into that 65% off. So, don't think I can't do my free trial. I have to lock in the 65%. You can start the free trial today and you'll be grandfathered in for a week when you have that 7-day free trial.
Damn. All right. Jake Wujastyk, he joins us every Monday talking charts, talking raindrops, talking throwing babies out with the bathwater or something like that. Jake, appreciate your time as always, sir. Have a good one.
Hey, you too. See ya.
All right. Aaron Bree, before we bring on our last guest of the day, I have something sad to report, and that is that after 6 years, my ID badge holder to get into the building is finally broken.
Oh, wow.
And I need to get a new one.
Well, it might take about 6 to 8 months considering supply chain issues to get a new
This is my ID badge. The holder is broke. It attaches to my belt clip. It is broken, and I don't know what to do. Here, you guys want to see what my ID badge picture was from 6 years ago? I don't know if you can zoom in on that, Rohan, but it broke just now, and it's very sad. So anyway, what are we at on the like front, guys? Not enough. Can we get to 400 likes today? We'll make it 300. We'll make the goal at 300. Can we get to 300 likes? I don't know. We should try. What else did I write down? I want to make sure we didn't forget things. There was one more. Okay, there was one more stock that we were asked about before. We were asked about DM. We'll ask our next guest about that. Chris Capri.
I'm seeing some headlines that Powell being like reinstated was once seen as a layup, and now it's like 50-50.
The betting markets?
Yeah.
The betting markets are unsure.
Coin flip.
Uncle Jay?
Yep, about Uncle Jay.
All right.
His would-be replacement is a lady by the name of Lael. I'm gonna mess up her last name. Lael, maybe. Lael Bernard.
Yeah, she's a Fed president.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she potentially may replace Powell, but it seems like they have pretty similar stances on most things.
Interesting.
I just don't know how the markets would react to Powell being getting the boot.
All right, let's bring Chris on. Chris Capri. Shelly says release Chris. Chris is here. Chris Capri, there he is.
Release the hounds.
I don't know which Chris she's referring to. There's more than one, but this is the Chris we have, so deal with it. What's up, man? How we doing?
What's happening? How we doing today?
I showed my dad a segment that you were on with me a couple weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, that Chris guy seems to know a lot." And my dad's a hard man to please. I would know. So you got the endorsement from Mr. Israel.
I appreciate that. I am playing a sad violin song right now for your badge being broken. So
it's very sad.
I'm feeling with you.
Yeah. Anyway,
Chris, before we get started to some charts, tell us about your new role. I saw you had a nice.
Yes. What is this? Breaking news? Chris Capri and Benzinga?
Yes, I'm writing some content for y'all right now, and according to Luke, we're in a trial phase, so we might make this go full. Like a more how could you say full on approach. So yeah, I'm writing option content right now. I'm not sure how many option writers you have, but I'm writing content pieces that are kind of similar to the ones that I do on the live show, basically.
Got it. So essentially like written form content of what we discuss on the show when we're, looking at option data of certain stocks, assets, etc. So anyone watching, stay on the lookout for some nice articles coming out by Chris this week.
Wait, I bet you I could find the link. Did we already write a couple, Chris?
Oh yeah, many. Unity,
right. I'm gonna put
LQD. Just search LQD. We did. We covered. There was a institutional trade. Did a pretty large option bet on LQD, so we covered that. The one thing is that
Chris's article page in the chat right there. Benzinga.com/author/Chris-Capri right there in chat. We've got meta platforms. We got the iShares bond ETF. Interesting.
LQD,
Roblox, SC, DoorDash. Open Door. Is the door open for Open Door? SoFi, Affirm. He's saying all the sexy names.
Yep. The only thing is I don't get the flexibility that I do on this show to actually call it live trade outs but that's, just part of the regulations and I get that. So I can't, give quite the same trade recommendations, but some of the core analysis is still in there. And it's obviously, this is coverage every day. So
you still got to come here for the best Chris Capri content. But if you want a little bit of extra, then you can go to his author profile on benzinga.com. All right, Chris, without further ado, what do you got on the docket for us today?
Trade desk. So let's start with trade desk.
All right, let's get a screen.
Yeah, my bad.
All good. All good, brother.
There we go.
Yeah.
TTD.
Strong. So we broke all-time highs just this last week on earnings. Very strong volume and closed above it and just straight buying from the open. Very, very strong to start. So we feel like this area is going to, between 95 and 100, is going to hold on pullbacks. And so I'm looking to get long on pullbacks. The way I'm probably going to play it is I will wait for a little bit more of an aggressive dip. Let those puts kind of charge in value. So as the market falls, puts increase in value. And so let them charge a bit. And then I'll either buy, because I am happy to be long the stock between 100 and say 98 and a quarter. So I will sell the cash secured puts on this for this weekly OPEX. And so I'll wait, if we can get a dip down to say 103 or 102, then I'll probably sell the hundreds or the 99s, but probably the hundreds. Sell the cash secured puts. It basically means that if we close below 100 by this Friday's expiry and those puts get exercised, I'll be long at 100, which is where I want to be. So I prefer this as an entry tool that if there's a price I want to get long at a particular price, instead of just waiting for price to get down there, I might as well get paid to wait for that. So I'm totally happy to be long at 100. So I will sell the cash secure puts, get a little bit of a dip, charge those puts up, and then I'll sell them for this Friday. So that's the first one on the list.
Okay. We have a setup here in TTD. What else we got?
Just checking comments. It seems like we're all good. So CrowdStrike. And let me pull up the 1 minute. I want to start off with the weekly, and then we'll go to the 1 minute real quick on this one here. So CrowdStrike has, kind of formed this. Oh, I'm missing my wonderful pen. 1 second, loading up the trusty pen. There she is. Okay. So CrowdStrike has kind of created this balance zone, minor false break. When it broke above it, it treated this as the base for its launching pad higher. We've now kind of formed another corrective structure. And when I look at the options, kind of open interest and everything like that, I feel like 240 to 230 is a solid area to get long. So I'm running the same playbook on this one as I am TDD. I'm selling cash secured puts between 240 and 230. The trigger for me today, as I was watching this in real time on the live chart, was, let's go to 1 minute here. So sold off, which is nice. That's what we want. That charges the puts. We had this we hit this 250 right here. There we go. So we hit 250 right here. And volume, if you look at it leading into this, volume is pretty flat while we're selling off aggressively. We hit 250, we get a big spike, and we get a big volume spike on the 1 minute.
Just to be clear, this is from this morning, right? That's what we're looking at?
This is this morning. Then, we get a few more volume spikes, and the volume's a little bit different. So we get a little bit of a pop. Now we're kind of, floating back a little bit. But if you notice, let me stretch the screen a little bit here. Do you see how we're kind of kind of chopping around this 250 area and showing that, hey, there's some liquidity, there's some interest here. Anytime you see something that's been aggressively selling off and then it's not selling off so much, this right here is a transition. All these prior kind of moves, if I show you and extend it out, everything produced a lower low. So base, lower low, lower low, lower low, lower low. So here's the 250 where we had that volume spike. We did produce a low low and produce a lower high, another low low, but now look what's happening here. Instead of just making a new low, we tag this low and now we're starting to base. That suggests to me that possibly that the open interest there is strong and that dealers might be no longer trading with the market, but trading into the market. So trading with the market is a situation where if the stock sells off, the dealers have to sell that stock to adjust their hedges basically. And trading into the market is as the stock starts to sell off, the dealers actually have to buy into that sell-off. So they're trading into the market, not with the market. And I'm sensing that this 250 spike was kind of like that first shot across the bow saying like, hey, we're going to start doing some hedging at this area. And the fact that we've gotten a little bit, kind of a consolidation and a decent push up here, I think if we close above 251 or 254, then that will suggest the open interest is strong there.
How would you know, though, just by looking at the chart, that the market makers would have to trade with or against the market?
You wouldn't know in and of the chart itself. It would be if you have access to option data and flows, if you can get pretty good at reading open interest and understand how gamma rate of change changes based upon the various strikes are at, then it would be much easier to see what's happening. But let's say you don't have access to that data, because most traders don't have access to that data. Well, then what you'd want to see is generally around a major strike, an even number, 250, 249, 245, $5 numbers, $10 numbers, kind of thing like that. But you need to see a transition. You need to see a transition. And the transition would manifest itself in the price section saying like, look, what was the structure before this? Prior to this bounce off of 250, everything was pretty much hammering below the 9 and the 20 with very mild pullbacks. Again, lower highs, lower lows. But now we're seeing a transition. And that transition around a major strike, if you didn't know, would kind of be, hey, there might be something here. Without the access to the flow data, it's very hard. So you just have to rely upon transitions.
Okay.
If the market is selling off so aggressively, and this is strong, this is a very strong drop in CrowdStrike. It opens right around 270. We dropped $20. That's almost a 10% move. It's like 15%, 18% roughly. And then all of a sudden you start to see a transition. Why would it all of a sudden stop on the day? Yeah, you could say it's oversold, but generally that's because it runs into order flow there that creates a transition. It's too strong and it's going to start kind of pushing against that.
Okay. So whether it's market plumbing dynamics or technical, whatever, all that really matters though is your point about the stocks forming a base here.
Yes,
right?
You would need to see. You'd want to see a transition in structure. So if everything's making lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower lows, and then all of a sudden, that lower highs, lower lows, all of a sudden goes sideways, that's a transition. Now that transition doesn't mean reversal, but it does mean that, hey, we were selling aggressively, we no longer are. That is oftentimes, the first kind of change in the system of saying like, hey, the order flow has changed, at least for this balance or rebalancing structure. And so this would be the first sign. Now, if we start to take out these highs and these highs, that's the second transition in place. So the more transitions you have in place, the greater the chance that a reversal, is happening. And that could be because of dealer order flows, large institutional buyers coming in. It doesn't really matter. But those transitions, the more that they start to stack up, the more the evidence starts to shift to, hey, we've hit a zone where it's just not going past it, and now it's going to reverse.
A question from Shelly here in the chat: is it better to use 1 minute charts with options, because that's what you've got up right now?
No, it just depends on what kind of trading you're doing. If you're day trading options, yeah, 1 minute and 5 minutes, fantastic. But if you're not day trading options, I generally don't recommend, trading off the 1 minute chart. It would depend upon what your holding times are. So if you're holding for, 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks out, the 1 minute is only going to help you if you're really trying to time the pricing of the options to perfection. If you're really trying to find that optimal time to, okay, hey, look, I'm going to sell a cash secure puts. The market's selling off. I need to time this as close to the bottom as possible, because as this market sells off like this, those puts are going up in value. Once the market starts to transition sideways or go up, these puts start to go down in value. So if you're looking for the absolute best pricing and you're holding these options for a few days, maybe a week, okay, sure, you can start to look at these lower time frames. But if the pricing isn't so much of an issue, then you don't really need to look at the 1 minute chart. So it really depends on your holding times and how you're trying to work with the pricing. Does that make sense?
It does. So the takeaway here is that, do you have an actual trade for us in CrowdStrike, or are you pointing this out more to say, hey, here's a potential change in direction? But let's finish up the setup here.
Yeah, we sold the cash for 240 secure puts this morning.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Once we had this little bounce, we sold it. We gave it to our members right away, posted in our live trade channel, and said, hey, we're short, or we sold these right now, 240 for the end. This expiry right now. They're actually slightly priced a little bit better right now. So if you felt like you could do that, I'd recommend it. Keep in mind, when you sell cash secure puts, you do have to have a decent amount of margin depending upon the price of the stock. And you don't sell these unless one of two conditions is really in place. One, you actually want to get long the stock wherever your strike is. We sold the 240. I want to be long at 240. I'm totally comfortable being long at 240. Even if we close below it, I'm totally long with being comfortable at 240. The other situation would be you don't think you think it's a low probability that the market's going to get below the strike that you're selling the cash secure puts, and you're really there just to collect the premium. If you're there to collect the premium and you think it's a low probability, then I would do it. Just keep in mind, puts, when they sell off, they gain in value faster than calls gain in value. So it's super important that you understand that if you're not willing to be long at that price, you're going to be a lot more sensitive to price changes, especially if that stock falls.
Awesome. All right. So now we have the logic behind the trade, and we have the actual trade itself. And then do we have a target? I guess 240 would be.
So I don't have a target per se.
And did you say the expiration on these? I don't remember.
This Friday. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So this Friday. So, and let me kind of, dive into a little bit more of why I want to be long at 240. So if you look at 240, let's move this line up here there's 240. You can see this is a pretty rich zone of support. There's a lot of order flow here. And we haven't since, when is this? Since June of this year, we've only had one weekly close inside this. Everything's been above it. The market has rejected this kind of 240 to 230 zone since June. So I believe that will hold. And I like CrowdStrike as a type of stock that I would like to hold for a few months at a time. So this is what I would classify as a medium-term swing trade. But instead of just putting a limit order to buy the stock, why not get paid to wait and see if we can get in at that same limit order? That's why
it's nice to get paid while waiting.
Think of how many limit orders you placed on a stock over the years, and imagine if every single one of those, instead of just putting a limit order, you don't get paid or anything like that. Imagine if you had sold premium to get into that order every single time. Imagine if you collected $1 to $3 in premium every single limit order. That all adds up.
It's a great idea. All right, we got about 12 minutes left here, Chris. What other stocks, trades on your radar here, and then we can go to stuff from the chat.
IWM, and then let's do chat. So,
all right,
IWM small caps had a very important structural breakout. It's been inside of this.
What is this?
Range.
Okay,
this is weekly.
Yeah.
So it's been inside this range for quite a long time. Impressive run in February 21. That's when everything was just screaming, and then everything pulled back And IWMs, instead of kind of like the S&P 500 or the Qs making kind of like some lower lows short term, they just kind of stuck it and held this corrective structure for a while. So IWMs has been stuck between 234 and 211, since February this year. 2 weeks ago, breaks out. And, we had kind of told our members, look, it's not getting above 245 this week. It didn't. It's pulled back since then. We like getting long IWMs, between 234 and say 230. So again, it's the same play. I feel like instead of getting long options, long gamma, which you could trade this either way. I'm going to sell the cash secure puts because I want to be long IWMs between 234 and 230. So I will be happy to sell them for this week. Ideally, it closes below that. It gets exercised. I'm long, and then I'll sell weekly premium. The plan is to hold IWMs through the December OPEX, which is the 17th. The monthly OPEX is the 17th. And I believe that between, the end of this week and December OPEX, we will get to 245, maybe even push past that. Now, let's say you don't want to sell cash secure puts, or maybe it's too much a margin. Fine. Then I would say wait until we, break this week low here, which is around 236.5. If we do that, the calls will be really cheap. And so you could get long calls for the December monthly OPEX, buy the 234s. You could do that, but you may have a little bit of time to gain, or you can buy a bull call spread. That would mean getting long the 234 calls here and selling the 245s here. So I would think either you get long calls if you just want to be long outright calls, or you sell the bull call spread. That would be my recommendation. I believe IWM comes back into this zone, holds this zone, and then it makes another attack up to 245 before the end of the year. So that's the play on that one.
Yeah, that big old breakout candle from 2 weeks ago sort of changed everyone's perception here, right? Because we were waiting for the almost the entire year for something to happen, and then it happened. But now you're playing the pullback, which I guess is smart. So
it's to be expected. We kind of ran into some hedging. So this was kind of that same situation where dealers were in a situation where once we start getting into 245, they actually had to trade into the market. So the market's rising, and they had to actually start selling as we got to 245, and we just couldn't get past it. Tried, boom, big sell-off. So 245 was really, we told our members every single day, like, it's not getting past 245. It's not getting past 245. There's just too much open interest, and there's too much kind of hedging requirements for them that they will start selling as we get into that. And so that's what's happened. And this pullback has kind of been expected. It's taken 2 weeks, which is fine with me. I think this is probably the last week of the pullback. At best, we have one more week of a pullback. And then I think after that, we start to, take off. I wouldn't be surprised to see IWMs take kind of a little, another aggressive turn to the upside. This is the monthly OPEX this Friday. So the options board will reset. There's a decent amount of positive gamma in IWMs. Positive gamma is important because it means that the market is net long options. And so that means that the market it's not only net long options, they're net long calls right now. So the market's net long options. This pullback is definitely less aggressive than the buy up, which means that the sellers don't have as much force as the buyers did on the way up. And so I think the buyers will step in and then make that attack there.
All right, should we go to the chat? AB, are you awake?
I'm awake.
I'm just checking on you, man. I don't know. You're awfully quiet over there. We have some tickers here from the chat. I want to ask about. Eduardo asked about Snowflake. I feel like we talk about snow like every single week on this show.
It's a hot stock. I own it in my long-term portfolio.
We get asked about snow.
It's hard not to like snow right now. It's just such a gangster stock. So let me take a look at the options flows on this.
It's a gangster stock. You hear that? I never heard of.
I mean, we're long.
I like it.
So we have a long-term investing service and Snow is one of our picks, and so it's it's performing incredibly well right now. All right, so Snow, even though it's it's an impressive stock. You're talking, if it closes bullish this week, it's another 7 weeks up, which is amazing. Does have earnings coming up, but with that being said, Snow for such a big stock actually doesn't have a whole lot of options. A decent amount of options. There's about 110,000 calls. And there's 119,000 puts in the market.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Top, you know, there could be a lot of reasons, but you know, it doesn't quite have the same. How could I say it hasn't just broad-based attention. You know, this is a stock that's only come around live about a year ago from today. So a year and 2 months ago. So it still hasn't hit the broad investment and community. I'm willing to bet someone who doesn't like watch Benzinga regularly, doesn't trade actively, they probably don't know a whole lot about Snowflake. So it's not like a name that's really permeated. You ask somebody who's like a Robinhood investor who doesn't like look at the markets much. You ask them about Amazon, Microsoft, they know all that. You say Snowflake, they'll be like, what? So it's not something that's really penetrated into everybody's minds. It's not a household name, and it's not necessarily a software or product that everybody uses. You know, this is something that's for corporations basically. So with that being said, Snowflake has about 32% of the options rolling off this Friday. And that's going to create a little bit of a headwind as we go forward. So I don't really see Snowflake because of that headwind, because of all the options rolling off, and we're heading into resistance. I don't see it getting past this resistance, you know, this week. I think we get a little bit of a pullback in that. Where do I think there's going to be resistance? I think we start getting into strong resistance around 400, 405, 410. I think at best it hits 410 and then it pulls back this week. Where would I want to get long, Snow, based upon option flows? Let me just take a look at something here real quick.
While Chris is doing that, let's get that like counter up, everyone. Let's get up to over 200. I think that's easily doable.
So looking at, because it's not a heavy option stock, you generally don't have to worry about the intra-week. You have to worry about the monthly expiries. The 1 week expiries don't have as much value unless we have an earnings, which we do coming up on the first here. That's next Thursday, I think. So, yeah. So I'm looking nothing crazy on the December 3rd expiry, nothing crazy on the 26th. So let's look out to the December expiry. Yeah, I keep seeing solid open interest, 350, 360, 370. The strongest open interest right now for the December expiry is 400. And so I could see it pinning 400, 410, 420 by December OPEX, but I think we get a little bit of a pullback. I would probably look at the monthly VWAP right here because that's where I see some decent strikes. 370, there's some at 360, and then 350 are some really good strikes. So I think this probably presses towards, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the options start to roll off. This starts to get a little bit of a pullback. If we can get a pullback to 370, I think it's a decent opportunity to get long. Yeah, I like that area there.
Oh, all right. So
what else?
I hope you're happy. Who asked about that?
There's a lot of people asked about that.
Eduardo, I hope you're happy. Okay. I don't know if I can ask Chris about GGPI. It's the high fly short squeeze back of the day. I don't know if
do we even have options?
Probably not.
We actually do. It's not gangster.
Yeah.
We have about, this is what I would call mild in terms of options volume. You got about 207,000 calls. You only got about 50,000 puts. Anything below 500,000 is what I call mild flows. Above 500,000, you got about medium flows. Once you're at 1 million, the data is really robust at that point. With that being said, GGPI. Okay. So prior to today, 250,000 options on GGPI. How many options were traded today? 327,000. That is rare to see the single day option flows outpace the total options in the universe prior to that day. We're at like 140, 150% of the total options in the universe. So let's dive into this a little bit more.
It just happened today.
Just happened today.
That's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, this is not a stock with weekly options. So today alone, here, I'll just pull out the detached screen so you guys can look at this in real time. Let me show you. Okay. So here's your total options on the day. 292,000 calls, 36,000 puts. That basically means that You're talking like 9 out of 10 options are basically calls right now. And so where is the volume all concentrated? Right there. Now, I haven't looked at what's the price right now, 1542. Yeah, it's struggling here. So prior to today, I would have felt like, yeah, it's good support at $10. Yeah, it's good support at $10. And 21% of the options are rolling off this Friday. But you add all these options, this is like 55, that's 80,000. Now we're at 100,000. You got 125,000 calls that are expiring this Friday. And so if this doesn't rip further, then those calls are going to start to get monetized because they're going to start to lose theta decay and value pretty fast. The 17.5s are priced at $1.05 bid. They're going to lose 22 cents just by holding this overnight. So hold it overnight. Now that thing's worth 80 cents roughly. So these long calls are going to start to get monetized pretty soon. And so is there a question? Is somebody wondering if it's going to hit a certain target?
I don't know. It's a crazy stock of the day. I don't know what they're asking. Everyone's asking about this. I don't know, guys. This is a trade for today.
Yeah. Well, let me take a look at let me put it up real quick.
I don't know.
GGPI.
Like in 4 days, we're not going to remember what this stock was. So
no. Unlikely because you don't have a weekly OPEX. And so you're talking 140,000 of these 329,000 options are going to roll off this Friday. Yeah. And every day that this thing doesn't gain more ground, like if it doesn't make it past the weekly high today, those calls are just going to close them out for whatever value they have. So I feel like, because it kind of goes past the data we have and we just stretched a bunch of calls, I would say your absolute top for the week based on this is 22.5. And I seriously doubt we're going to get that. There's a lot of volume there, not much open interest. Even that, the 20s are kind of looking more like, hey, this is about as far as it gets. So, and it's going to need a new push because if it doesn't, option decay is going to be pretty fast. And a lot of those people that are long calls are going to be like, hey, I want to be out with whatever I can capture. I don't want to hold this till Friday. Yeah, I think it struggles.
That's it. All right, Chris Capri. He runs Second Skies Trading. You can go to secondskiesforex.com. It redirects to his site, or go to benzinga.com, and I'll put the link up on the screen again. benzinga.com/author/Chris-Capri.
And boot camp this Saturday, I will be teaching as well. I'll be teaching.
Yes,
I think
you'll be at the boot camp.
Yes,
boot camp.
Yes, I think I'm covering on trends. I think that's what we're going to be covering. I have to look, but I think we'll be talking about trends.
BenzingaBootcamp.com. All day, 9 to 5, all day trading education, technical analysis, a whole lot more. Chris will be there. You'll be there. I'll be there. He'll be there. If we can drag him out of bed at that hour. Chris, have a good one, man. We'll see you on Saturday. Have a good rest of your week.
Good seeing you. Take care.
All right.
Talk soon, Chris.
All right. AB, you were disturbingly quiet today. I hope you're okay.
Oh, I'm great.
Okay. I hope your portfolio is okay.
Not doing well. Looking at some trades, trying to get myself turn a red day green. You know how it goes. All right, Spencer, we've got Moon or Bust coming up right now. Our guys, Ryan McNamara and Logan Ross, will be taking you through the wild world of crypto. So without further ado, let's go ahead and wrap the show and get over to Moon or Bust. Please smash the like if you have not already. And as always, shoot us an email at shows@benzinga.com with any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, etc. With that, we will leave y'all to the crypto guys and see y'all tomorrow at noon Eastern.
Oh, you beat my...